gentlemen, welcome to the 69th episode. Nice. The 69th episode of Blueshirt Bandwidth. I'm your nice host, Joe Fortunato, joined as always by my not nice co-host, Eric Kohn. Eric, how are you?
I'm all right. It is still very snowy here in Grand Rapids. We are up to 14 inches of snow. We are not officially in Canada. This will be addressed a little bit later, but we are still not officially Canada, but we do have Canada's weather right now. And I was actually supposed to be in New York tomorrow, and that is now not happening in part because of the weather I have here, the weather you have there, and the weather at all places in between that I would have had to pass through in order to get to New York. So what I'm trying to say, Joe, is fuck the weather.
I got about 20 inches on the ground right now, I would say. I love a good blizzard. I very much so enjoyed this weekend. Going to happen again next weekend, it looks like, or this coming weekend, I guess I should say. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I don't mind this at all. I also didn't have an event in the city that got pushed back. So
that is true. I have a question for you. Just something I'm curious about. So there was this guy whose name escapes me who climbed this tower in Taipei, Taiwan. Did you see this?
Sure, I think I did see this.
Okay. This was live streamed on Netflix. To get me to watch that, you would have to replace waterboarding with that if I were a prisoner in Guantanamo Bay. It's the only way I'm watching that.
Okay.
Does that interest you at all?
No. I do what you're basically saying to me is I either watch a guy successfully climb a tower or I watch a human being die. And I have no interest in either of those two things.
Agreed.
Zero.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I hate heights. The idea of watching somebody climb a tower like that is horrifying to me. And I think you made a very good, your point there is correct, which is I've always really enjoyed Penn and Teller in part because they do magic tricks, illusions. And they also tell you how they're doing all of them. And one of the things that Penn would always say is anything that looks dangerous is not really dangerous. We would never do anything with a legitimate chance of harming someone significantly. And this is not that. Like, there is no safety net. You might watch this person plummet to their death. The idea of that being a live streamed product is just absolutely bananas to me.
Yeah, what does that contract look like with Netflix? You know what I mean?
Idea.
Like, think of I heard about this. I didn't know it was live streamed on Netflix. I know about free climbers in general. I believe this is going to be a wild statement. My dad knows someone who I think his son died free climbing. Like, the last words that his friends heard was, "Oh shit," and then that's the end.
Ugh.
Absolutely not. No
way in hell.
No.
Agreed.
Look, in general, you want to climb Mount Everest? Why? What? There's not even oxygen up there. You're not supposed to be there. God is telling you not to go up there. What do you gain? You are passing corpses that you're using as fucking mile markers. And this is something you want to do to say you did it? Okay. If I'm sitting at a table with somebody who climbed Mount Everest, it's going to be like, so how was it? Hard? Cold? No oxygen? You almost died? Cool. Thanks. Bye. I'm not doing this. I don't want to know. I'm right here. I'm where I want to be. Although, this brings me to a very interesting piece of space facts. Those of you who are listening to the podcast, you guys know I'm a big space lore guy. If you were able to hold the Earth in the palm of your hand, the Earth would be smoother than a cue ball, like a billiard ball. That's how smooth the Earth is comparatively to from the highest peak to the low. So that's what, Mount Everest to the Mariana Trench, right? Those are the two peaks.
Marianas.
Or the Marianas, whatever. Charlie probably would have had that in the fucking report. So thank you for that. So, yeah. I find that interesting. I find that very interesting.
Of course, I already knew that was the case because I have seen the documentary film Men in Black, where it is revealed at the end that the Earth and, in fact, the whole galaxy is just a marble that some aliens are playing marbles with.
That is Men in Black 2, if I'm not mistaken.
That's one.
What is the one where he kicks the door open and Earth is like a locker in a gym for an alien? It's one of those where he kicks.
It's definitely not one.
Maybe that's Men in Black 2, where he kicks the door open. In fact, I think it is Men in Black 2. He kicks the door open.
Are you sure it's that, Joe? Are you sure it's not nothing?
I am sure it is that. I'm positive.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to Blueshirt Banter, or I guess I should say Blueshirt's Bandwidth. The name of the BlueshirtBanter.com. $85 a year gets you all your ad-free access to the New York Rangers. $40 a year gets you put into our community tier. That gets you access to the Discord, which is up and running. That also gets you access to the commenting system. You can comment on stories, just like the one that Eric posts every single week with questions, comments, and concerns for this very podcast. We will sprinkle that through the show. YouTube.com/BlueshirtBanter. You could see us right now. I happen to look gorgeous in my Sacred Heart men's lacrosse red quarter zip. Eric looks like a fucking homeless person in his diarrhea green hoodie. So you can certainly see what I'm working with, and I would appreciate your support in this time. Spotify, iTunes, please give us a like, 5 stars, leave a comment.
Follow us on Spotify.
Yeah,
that's really important. Follow us.
Follow us on Spotify. Tell your friends about us. There's no reason not to tell your friends about us. You should talk about us. Join the banter, Facebook.com/BlueshirtBanter. You can pretty much find us anywhere you want to. So why don't you do that and then come back to me and tell me that you did it so that I know you did it. There's 1 million feet of snow on the ground. The Rangers won a hockey game at home that I happened to be at yesterday. A lot of things to go through. But first, Eric, I believe it's my time. Why don't you pull up good old Charlie's report and clear the air about some erroneous information that was put up there.
We will get to that. I do want to say, as we always cover at the beginning of these shows, this is episode number 69.
Right.
And this is the Andrew Margolin episode of Blueshirt Bandwidth. Andrew Margolin was the E-Bug, the emergency backup goaltender, on February 9th, 2018 for a game against the Calgary Flames. They needed a backup for Hank after an injury to Andrei Pavlich. Remember the Andrei Pavlich experience?
I feel like I do remember this.
And the jersey that they fashioned for him had number 69 with the nameplate McBackup. That was Andrew Margolin. So this is the Andrew Margolin episode of Blueshirt Bandwidth.
Honestly,
no other player has worn 69 for the Rangers. Because as you noted before we started, the number is unofficially banned in the NHL.
Which is bullshit. Like, come on. Let the people have some fun. It would also be great if an emergency backup goalie's name was like Goalie McGoalie Face. You know what I mean? Just like, you know what? You get your own stage name. Pick a WWE wrestling name and just come out. Like now playing goalie for the New York Rangers is fucking like the Claw or something. Yeah, exactly. Like just have some fun with it. Well, we're here.
All right.
Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for being here.
We will indulge Joe.
Yes, by all means. I'd like to hear.
Let's get to the podcast Ombudsman report for Blueshirt Bandwidth episode 68, which begins with Ombudsman mea culpa. It is with deep regret that and I think you already know this, but when I say I in reading these, I am speaking for one Charlie Vidal, who is.
Let me just say something here, though, for a second.
Yes.
For those of you that watched on YouTube, you saw the look in Eric's face. He knew that this was fucked up. He knew it was wrong. So at any point in time, he could have put an end to this, and he elected not to, and he rode this out to the end, and now here you are getting your just dessert.
I'll be honest with you, in the moment, at least at the very beginning, Joe, I don't remember what I had for dinner last night. You expect me to remember everything that I said on the podcast the previous week? But basically most of my job is talking. I think I had spent the prior day just on an endless stream of Zoom calls where I was talking through all of them. And I don't remember all of the things that I said. I need somebody to travel with me, specifically for the purpose of recalling things that I have said. So by the end of it, yes, it was like, okay, I think I remember this. But in the very moment, it could have been either of us. I honestly did not remember.
Here's why it triggered me. I got
Clearly.
triggered.
Clearly.
Here's why it triggered me. You were in that episode. We were fighting about this, and you were furious that I was not angrier about Miller. So not only did you yell at me on the air of the episode, you then did not remember yelling at me about it and was totally fine with this totally contrarian point being...
I remembered yelling at you. It's just I don't remember everything that I said, or B, that maybe you were giving me just like, okay, he was a petulant little bitch as kind of a sop to my argument in order to, try to move on to something else. So I'm just saying, for the sake of all honesty, yes, by the end of our dialogue on this in the last episode, it was like, yeah, that probably was me that said that. At the very beginning, I really honestly did not.
But Charlie, I expect better from you. Like,
well,
I don't pay you no money to fuck this up.
We're getting to that. It is with deep regret that I, one Charlie Vidal, must correct the episode 67 Ombudsman report where I mistakenly attributed the comment that JT Miller is, quote, a petulant little bitch to Joe, when it was Eric who called Miller a petulant little bitch. I take pride in my role as ombudsman and will take steps to ensure that mistakes like this do not happen again. So, for the record, Eric called JT Miller a petulant little bitch, not Joe. Joe does not consider JT Miller to be a petulant little bitch, at least as far as we know.
Change.
The Jaromir Jagr episode. Episode 68 is obviously the Jaromir Jagr episode, which raised the topic of the worst trades in NHL history due to the nature in which the Rangers acquired Jagr. At face value, exchanging Jaromir Jagr for Anson Carter seems like a terrible trade for the Washington Capitals. That being said, it was a pure salary dump for the Capitals in advance of the impending 2004 lockout and uncertain future of the NHL at the time. The Capitals were in fact so desperate to get out of the 4 years remaining on Jagr's $11 million per year deal that they agreed to pay $4 million of it that season, or per season. The money, quote, from Capitals owner Ted Leonsis at the time was that he was preparing for the, quote, new economic reality, and that, quote, it moves the largest player contract in the NHL to a team that can absorb it, and it provides us with options as we seek to improve our team. Two other candidates for bad trades were mentioned, including the Capitals giving up Philip Forsberg for a 31-year-old Martin Erat in 2013. At the time, Erat was a middle-of-the-pack second liner. And of course, we all remember how the 2013 Capitals season ended, especially me, Charlie, because he was at the Verizon Center when it did in Game 7 on May 13th, 2013, with, of course, the Rangers winning a Game 7 in which Henrik Lundqvist started, as they pretty much always did. The other trade that was mentioned as being particularly egregious was the shocking Taylor Hall for Adam Larson trade that was consummated just days before free agency was set to start. At the time, it was seen as two similarly productive players who play different positions being swapped because of their team's needs, and the contemporary player cards basically bear this out. Those are included in there. Finally, Joe mentions that the Rangers have made some horrific trades over the years. In this list, I would include from his lifetime, Charlie's lifetime, and in no particular order, Zubov and Nedved to the Penguins for Luc Robitaille and Ulf Samuelsson in 95. John Moore, Anthony Duclair, and a 2016 first-round pick to the Coyotes for Keith Yandle at the 2016 deadline, which I would argue was only a bad trade in that the absolute refusal of Alain Vigneault to use Keith Yandle correctly is what made it a bad trade, not the trade in and of itself.
Yeah, he'll never see the pearly gates.
Ryan McDonough and JT Miller to the Tampa Bay Lightning for Nemesnikov, Howden, Hayek, and a 2018 first-round pick, which was Nils Lundqvist at the 2018 deadline. And of course, Pavel Buchnevich to the Blues for Sammy Blais and a 2022 second-round pick in July 2021. Rangers post-letter. Joe said that, quote, the Rangers play has improved post-letter. Between the release of the letter on January 16th and the recording of the podcast, the Rangers went 1-2, beating the Flyers 6-3, and then losing the first two games, what would be eventually be an 0-3 road trip to California. All that being said, Money Puck actually said that the Rangers deserve to win both of the games they lost in SoCal. Will the Rangers get this right? The question of whether or not the Rangers will get this retool right was raised following the letter 2.0, especially considering they were just 8 years removed from a similar teardown and retool. There have been a lot of changes to the Rangers front office since 2016, most notably Chris Drury replacing Jeff Gorton as general manager and John Davidson no longer being in the picture. Furthermore, Gordy Clark is out as the leader of draft operations, with John Lilly taking over that job as the director of player personnel and director of amateur scouting. Two new hires, Andy Schneider and Ari Vuori, V-U-O-R-I. Sorry, Ari, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Now report to Lilly in the amateur scouting department. That all being said, Jed Ortmeyer is still the director of player development, having been in that role for almost a decade. There is no Artemi Panarin coming. Eric said the one key difference between the 2018 letter and this letter is that there is no Artemi Panarin coming via free agency in the offseason. If there was an Artemi Panarin coming, then we wouldn't be having this letter. Jason Robertson versus Brady Tkachuk. When discussing potential trade acquisitions, Joe said that he thinks Jason Robertson is a better player than Brady Tkachuk, both of whom are 26 years old, American-born left wingers. Jay Fresh's model agrees with Joe's assertion, although both players are clearly elite. Artemi Panarin. As Artemi Panarin plays his final games as a Ranger in the weeks ahead, Eric and Joe waxed rhapsodic about his time with the Rangers. Eric says that he has, quote, nothing but fond memories of Panarin, and Joe called him, quote, one of the best free agent signings of all time, maybe the best. Longtime readers of the Ombudsman report may recall that Panarin would have become the unrestricted free agent signed by the Rangers to a contract or 5 years of more who actually saw his contract to completion with the Rangers. Marian Gaborik is the only other 5-year-plus contract signed by the Rangers who played it out, albeit having been traded to the Blue Jackets and then to the Kings. Brad Richards, Wade Redden, Chris Drury, and Scott Gomez all retired or were bought out prior to finishing their respective contracts. As far as the best free agent signings in NHL history go, I would have to give the nod to Zdeno Chara's 2006 signing with the Boston Bruins, as he went on to play 14 seasons with Boston and captained them to their only Stanley Cup championship since the days of Bobby Orr. The Ottawa Senators allowed Chara to walk because they thought that Wade Redden was a better bet. When Chara was captaining the Bruins to the Stanley Cup during the 2010-2011 season, Redden was leading the Hartford Wolfpack defenseman in scoring with 42 points. And finally, snow. As Eric complained about snow, Joe said to Eric, quote, that's what you get for living in Canada. Eric lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which has not been annexed by Canada yet. And that concludes the Ombudsman Report for Blueshirt Bandwidth episode 68.
There will be a internal investigation in how such an egregious error could have possibly happened. And accept my apologies, somebody who has not made such an egregious error on the show ever before, that it will not happen again.
Who are you appointing to lead this investigation?
Me. Much like Gary Bettman makes decisions and then is somehow the appeal judge in the NHL, that's my role in this. Whoa, what have you got there, buddy? What's that?
So this is a little bit of Blanton's, and it is in the American Airlines glass that I stole from being in first class a couple of trips ago.
How did you steal it?
I finished my drink, I dumped the ice out, and I put it in my bag.
I've
really
never...
wasn't that complicated. It's not like an Ocean's 11 level plot to get out
of there
but like
with
an American Airlines tumbler.
It's just a glass. Like, what is was it just for the sake of doing it?
Okay, so if you want the full answer to that,
I'm asking the question for a reason.
I was on a flight coming back from, I think we may have talked about this, from Washington, D.C., when we were over Pittsburgh, and the oxygen masks dropped on the
Well, this
flight.
was this flight? Oh, you had plenty of time to sneak this in.
No, this was after. I stuck the glass in my bag because I thought I deserved something for the experience of having to, one, land in Akron, Ohio, and then drive from Akron to Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I wanted something to sip some whiskey out of, compliments of American Airlines. So that's what I've got here.
You just take it upon yourself to just rob the airline from a horrific incident for everybody involved. All right, that works.
Yep.
Okay, we should probably start with Carson Soucy being traded. Carson Soucy was the first trade between the Rangers and the Islanders since, I believe, 2010. The Rangers traded Carson Soucy for a third-round pick to the New York Islanders. More than likely, this is going to be a lower, meaning worse selection than I believe the 72nd overall pick that the third-round pick Drury traded to get Carson Soucy last year was.
By like maybe 15 spots or something.
Yeah,
and at that point in the third round, like, is it really that big of a deal?
Fine. Let's just start with this piece here. I need some of you to pick a lane when it comes to Chris Drury criticism. There are many things you can be critical of for Chris Drury, but I am seeing many, many, many people who were on this side of the Venn diagram being like, Drury was an asshole last year. Nobody wants to work for him. It's terrible. He wasn't fair. He didn't talk to the players. Now saying, like, why not hold out? This is the return you got back. It is worth noting that Carson Soucy just had a newborn child.
Mhm.
And more than
Their third
likely,
child.
this was Chris Drury's way. Well, it's still born new. It's still a newborn.
But just emphasizing the point
Sure.
that it's like he has a young family.
Right. Just moved across the country last year. And this was probably Chris Drury doing him a solid so that he did not need to move his family across the country again. Kind of can't have it both ways. Now, had Drury have done this with like Vincent Trocheck and got a much less return, totally different story. I just please, you can't be mad at both. You know what I mean? Like, you got to pick and choose for the love of Christ. So, is there anything you want to add to that? Otherwise, we could just get to the Soucy piece.
Two things. So if you go back to Chris Feldman has been doing this series of 5 potential trade options for different Rangers who we expect to be traded. He had done one for Carson Soucy. And if you go through the potential returns in there, I'll give you one here, which was to the Minnesota Wild. Trade concept is Jimmy Clark and a 3rd round pick. So even Chris is kind of saying like, a guy who was Jimmy Clark, who was a 7th round draft selection and a 3rd round pick. So yeah, maybe you could have gotten a C tier prospect and a 3rd round pick, or if you actually go to the last one here, the Anaheim Ducks, a conditional 2nd round pick. Like, this is pretty much in line with what we were thinking about in terms of return. And basically, they dropped 15 spots or so in the draft in order to rent Carson Soucy for a season, which, look, I have some questions about what the reason for acquiring Carson Soucy was in the first place now, but to acquire him and basically at the cost of moving down 15 spots as a draft pick in the 3rd round when you're throwing darts at a dartboard anyway, it's not enough for me to really get my hackles up and want to spend a whole lot of time dissecting this in that manner. But I agree with you on the picking a lane in terms of some of this criticism. I think you're absolutely correct about this. This is Chris Drury recognizing, and I think this very much is a real thing. I got into it with some people on Twitter in the last couple of days about the locker room reactions last year and how mean Chris Drury was. And it's not that I think he handled it perfectly, and it's not that I don't think that these are human beings, especially younger human beings. We've talked about this before. There's a human element to all of this. But I am going to stand by my final point on all of it, which is, your boss is mean. You don't like the way that he's doing business. That's what the money is for. That's what the money is for. You're paid an incredible amount of money to play a child's game. You're incredibly fortunate in that sense. This is not to say that these personal and human issues don't exist. They absolutely do. But in the same way that you want Chris Drury to correct and to operate better than he did last year, his diagnosis was correct. Wanting to change up the lineup of that team after the loss to the Panthers, recognizing that they were not capable in their current construction of winning a cup was correct. You can take a lot of issues, and we have, Joe. We have taken a lot of issues with the way he went about it, particularly in the offseason leading up to last season. But at some point, too, you just have to say to the players in the locker room, I'm sorry you hate your boss. That doesn't give you an excuse to just stop trying, to throw a tantrum like we know that they did. I appreciate that there are people out there who want to come down fully on one side of this. And a lot of them, to me, in many cases, pretextually, have decided to come down on the side against Chris Drury. That's fine. Post your clown wig picture. I don't fucking care anymore. I hope I've made that abundantly clear. I think you're all a bunch of fools and losers for doing that shit. There's legitimate criticism lanes, but a lot of the he sucks stuff is just not interesting and not helpful. I don't understand why people are continuing to let the players off the hook for last year in these conversations. But we can return to that. But the point I want to make is you at least have to recognize that those things you had a problem with last year, he is correcting for. This is clearly a move to send him just over to Long Island so that he doesn't have to be the way that would probably work out. Like if he sends him to Dallas or something like that, right? He's living in a hotel room for the rest of the season, away from his family, on the road, even more than he otherwise would be. And keeping him in New York is a good guy move. So just, you're not going to implode. Like, you're not going to turn to dust if you say that Chris Drury did the right thing once. I promise you, you're going to get through it. I promise you that you're going to survive it. Give it a try.
Or you don't even it's not even worth this level of conversation, honestly. We expected Carson Soucy to get a third-ish round pick. The Rangers got back a third-round pick. Yes, it is less in terms of value than the pick they traded to get him. So be it. It's fine. The Rangers have been so shitty at drafting. The 15 spots don't actually matter. I promise you they don't matter.
Even if you were great at drafting, I would argue that they don't really matter all that much.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm much more concerned about Vincent Trocheck or Artemi Panarin if they're trading Lafrenière, what they're doing with Braden Schneider. Like, I can't be bothered with this. What I will say is my initial reaction to this trade when I heard that this was happening before the return was, oh shit, Drury's serious about, he doesn't care where he's trading, he's just looking for the best return. Probably need to amend that a little bit with the information that I found out, which is basically that, he has a child, that maybe this wasn't so much like, hey, we're going to trade anyone anywhere, but what we're going to get into next, and we may as well start to transition there, you can really tell that guys are aware that this is over. I don't think I have ever seen Vincent Trocheck more checked out in my life. And the only player that we know is being traded that doesn't feel like he's checked out is Artemi Panarin, and part of me thinks he's still trying to play for a contract here in New York.
Maybe.
So I just don't listen, the Rangers won. They beat the Bruins. Cool. Everybody happy. I got to go to a game where I saw a victory in overtime. Yay. But they are so unenthused to be out there. And you and I were talking about this a little bit, and I'll save, I guess, this piece when we talk about JT Miller. But any vibe Matt Rempe had before is gone. Vincent Trocheck, there was a period where he went down behind the net for a hot second and stayed on the ground for, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds. And I freaked out. Are we at a point, Eric, where we should just start keeping these guys out for trade purposes? I don't care if there's not a trade even close. Why is Vincent Trocheck playing in hockey games if you're going to trade him? Why is Artemi Panarin playing in hockey games if you're going to trade him? What do you have to gain?
It is a delicate balance, though. I don't know that you can not play these guys at all. For how long? If you have a trade that is impending, I get doing what they did last night, holding Soucy out of the lineup because they almost had a trade finalized. But and Roberto wrote a really good piece about this in terms of his argument, and I think he's right about this, which is I don't think that you can just sit all of the guys that you're expecting to trade until you trade them. I just don't think that works. But what you can do is manage their time a little bit more. You don't need Artemi Panarin playing 22 minutes a night. You can put some other guys out there. You can roll lines a little more evenly. And this does get to the tension that exists in any given hockey game, right? Mike Sullivan is coaching to win every hockey game that they are playing. I just think that is the nature of every coach. That is the nature of, we can get to whether it's the nature of every player, because I do find it interesting. And I think until Vincent Trocheck is traded and this is much less likely, JT Miller is traded, you and I are going to have a bit of this disagreement, which is, I like that you started with players are checked out and Vincent Trocheck is the first person that you named, when it is just so much more obvious that JT Miller is checked out. He is dogging it on a regular basis on the back check. He does not play defense. I agree with you, and I know what you're already going to say, that he's hurt. We have agreed about this from the beginning of the season. Hold him out then because he is hurt. Phantom IR him if you want to do that, to make sure that he's just available magically. Just time it so he's magically available just in time to go meaninglessly play in the Olympics, to soak up 7 minutes on the fourth line as Team USA, it finishes out of the medals. That's fine. Go ahead and do that. But the evidence of who is checked out, the first player who comes to mind for me is JT Miller, and it's not close. It's not particularly close for me.
I had a JT Miller story that I was saving, but since you decided to launch into it. So I was at the game last night, and I was sitting in seats that were right behind the net where the Rangers defend twice. And in the second period, I don't even remember what happened, but Miller was around the net. He got popped and fell into whoever the Bruin was, and was literally they were grabbing each other. And I could tell that Miller, the Bruin, wanted to go, whoever he was, just not fight necessarily, but was kind of shaking Miller. And Miller literally just skated away, let go of him, almost tapped him, all right, we're done here, and skated away. And my takeaway from this is very similar to what you just said, which is basically, hey, he doesn't want to get hurt before the Olympics, or any more hurt than he already is. And he just has no interest in really driving like that.
Trying.
I am going to say to you what I've said before, but I want to say it more clearly. I think there's a nuanced conversation to be had here. If you asked me if I had an expectation that JT Miller would be a better player next year than he's been so far this year, I would tell you yes, because I think Miller is hurt. I think he is literally not trying in hockey games specifically to not injure himself for the Olympics any further. I genuinely think he's just yep, I'm going to just go through the motions, not worry about it. Now, whether or not that's a leader, whether or not that's somebody who should be the captain, whether or not that's right or wrong, not my argument. This is the first piece of this is, I just think that JT Miller, the reason that I'm more angry at some other players than JT Miller is because I think JT Miller will be a better hockey player when he's healthy than he is right now. Now, the nuanced piece of this conversation, which you got to, if JT Miller is forcing himself to play every night, he is ultimately responsible for the product he puts on the ice. And the product that he is putting on the ice is a disgrace. He can say the right things in the locker room, and I got to be honest with you, I don't even really think he's saying the right things anymore. He said fuck once, cool, awesome, thank you.
That's
really,
he's leadering really hard because he used the F word.
I am so less sympathetic to the leadership aspects that I think you and I were impressed with at the beginning of the year when the season has gone down the drain like this. And I was astounded at how alive the Garden was last night for this piece of crap hockey team that is quite frankly going to finish in the bottom 5 in the NHL this year, and that's being kind. I'm shocked the Garden was as alive as it was.
I think the Centennial celebration stuff had a lot to do with that.
I didn't even know that was happening. At least Sam Rosen wasn't sad at the Garden.
No, you may not have known that was happening, but I think when you start the game with bringing out a whole bunch of members of the 94 team and having Sam Rosen do the introductions to that, I can understand why the crowd was maybe a little bit more into it in that game than they otherwise typically have been. And frankly, obviously speaking, the Rangers played better in that game than they have been playing, as demonstrated by the fact that they won the game in overtime. So I hear you about, I do expect that JT Miller fully healthy will be better next year. But you are correct that he is responsible for the product that he is putting on the ice. I guess maybe the middle ground that we should land on, or that we could land on, is if he's going to go through the motions, he needs to go to acting school. If he even just makes an attempt to do anything other than look like his PlayStation controller, the batteries went out and it disconnected, and he just glides. Like, I don't know if you remember this. I remember this pretty vividly. I can't remember what game it was, but there was one clip. I think it was against the Rangers, where Ovechkin just like total controller disconnected and
Yep.
just glided towards the net.
It was
as the
a
Rangers
give and
scored.
go between someone and Derek Stepan.
Stepan, yep, that's right.
Stepan scored, and there was literally a video created that had like the controller icon
Yeah,
over
exactly.
Ovechkin that just shut off. That was exactly what it was.
Miller is doing that on basically a game in, game out basis, at least once a game, where it seems like there is a serious scoring, high danger scoring chance, or a goal that is scored, that he just doesn't look like he is trying at all. And there is an element to leadership here that I think you have to hold him accountable for, in that he is wearing the C. He is the declared leader of the team, and he is on the ice phoning it in. Why? So that he can play in a tournament that doesn't matter. That at the end of the day, for what he is paid for, and I am all here for questions of national pride. I would love for the United States to win a gold medal. I think that would be great. That is not what JT Miller is paid for. That is not what the money is for. And the product he's choosing to put on the ice, because he could also go to Mike Sullivan and just say, again, going back to what I was saying, I can't do it. I need some time. It wouldn't even be a phantom IR, right? It's not like you do in baseball now for load management reasons for pitchers, where you just phantom IR the guy, injured list the guy, in order to give him some time and a breather. He legitimately is hurt. They could have put him on injured reserve just in time to get off to play maybe one game or two games before the one game, because there's one game next week before the Olympic break. There's 2 games maybe next week. Play those games after coming off of injured reserve, and then go play in the Olympics. But I just cannot bear anymore how bad he has looked. And it all just makes me think of, and I cannot remember, I would attribute it if I could, but somebody said a couple of weeks ago that JT Miller is a great kind of player to have on your team when things are going well, and he is a nightmare to have on your team when things are going poorly.
Who does that sound like? It's like Alexis Lafrenière. Maybe not a nightmare, but like, oh, things are going really well. He's a great player.
I think that's different. Like, I think it's a different quality and a different type of conversation about Alexis Lafrenière. We can come back to that if you would like. But I think he's speaking more of like the more attitude-based things. Because I just think, like, I'm sorry, I have come around to the opinion that Alexis Lafrenière just, like, he thinks it's super fucking cool that he managed to get a professional contract playing hockey. I just don't think he gives a shit all that much. There's just nothing about Lafrenière that tells me that he really gives a shit. JT Miller, you can see those times when he gives a shit, but it only seems to be when things are going well. And I don't think he may be a perfectly fine leader in the right context, but I don't think he's the right leader for this team in the position that they are in. And I think naming him captain before this season, and before knowing how things were going to go in his first season after the catastrophe that was last year, was them getting way out over their skis.
So the other piece of this that I think is bothering me is, I'm going to tell you how this is going to play out. JT Miller is going to go to the Olympics. You are going to witness him play 2 levels above where he's playing with the New York Rangers right now. Actually generating, literally doing as much as he possibly can to win an Olympic medal. And then he is going to come back, and he is going to go on IR, and you're not going to see him the rest of the year. And to the point that you're making, Eric, that's not leadership. I'm as pro USA as one can be. I don't give a shit about the United States national team winning a gold medal. I'd like them to. It would be great if they could. I guess I shouldn't say I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I give a shit. It's just not my top priority.
Right. If you said to me the Rangers can win the Stanley Cup or the United States national team can win the gold medal, I'm not even thinking about that.
Yeah. It's
Not
Stanley
even
Cup
a
every
little
day of
bit.
the week and
Yes,
twice on
I'm
Sunday.
taking the Stanley Cup. I have one set of priorities. And for the Rangers, and again, this is something you can be genuinely critical about with Chris Drury. What was the point of making JT Miller the captain right away? I know you want a captain. Mike Sullivan talked about how important it was. He embodies the culture of what we're trying to do here in New York. When healthy, I agree with all of those things. This JT Miller? And I should say, because I was giving him a pretty full-throated defense a couple of weeks ago for the misattributed quote from Charlie, I don't blame JT Miller for the lack of culture in the room. It was a problem before he got in. Yes, I would have hoped that he would have made things a little bit better. It's very clear that things are spoiled way beyond surface level here. Like, the Rangers did not do enough of a culling last year over the summer. They need to do a deeper culling this year. I have a really just deep belief that Trocheck is gone, Panarin's gone. I think the Zibanejad thing might start picking up some steam again over the summer. Like, maybe he doesn't want to be here. There is an opportunity for Chris Drury to truly kind of change things around. Now, there have been reports that JT Miller is not interested in waiving his no movement clause. He has not been asked to waive his no movement clause. I think it would be insane for Chris Drury to go up to him and be like, hey, we don't, I know we just gave you the C, but we don't really want you here anymore. I'm not suggesting it would be the wrong thing to do. I'm the guy who said that I would push a button and, undo the trade if I could. But that was more of the Rangers need, or not need. I'd rather have the flexibility and not have to worry about having these three guys over 30 that are centers that are past their prime. Like, honest question, a healthy JT Miller, it's not out of the realm of possibility on a normal team for him to be an 80-plus point player next year. It's not a ridiculous thought process. And not to turn this to anybody else, Alexis Lafrenière is not going to be a 70-point player next year. The Rangers aren't going to be good enough. Vincent Trocheck is going to be Vincent Trocheck again next year. You know what I mean? Like, there are very few guys on this team that I see taking a step forward next year. Perreault, theoretically. Laba, theoretically. Scott Morrow, theoretically. I don't even know how much you can expect from them, depending on the product that the Rangers are putting on the ice. And we'll get to some of the decisions Mike Sullivan is making from an ice time perspective. But from a Miller piece, if he's going to play, he has to be responsible for the product he is putting on the ice. If he is going to suit up every single night, he can't be doing the shit that he's doing. And again, some of that, quite frankly, is his inability to be able to do it because he's fucking hurt and he's trying to play through it. But why the Rangers, with the season basically toast, when they've all but admitted they're tanking, aren't just sitting JT Miller as well to let him get as healthy as possible for the Olympics, since that's the only thing that apparently matters? I don't know. What, it would be that much worse if Miller wasn't playing? He's barely playing right now. And it would force Sullivan to spoon feed guys like Perreault, Laba, Cooley much bigger minutes. Which goes back to why is Matt Rempe playing? He's either hurt or some succubus sucked out his soul. I don't even know how that works. Bring up Berard again. Bring up Sikora. What does it matter? The worse you are, the better right now. And look, I lean into that a little bit. I just want to say, the Rangers should lose every game. They're not going to, obviously. They're going to win games against Boston. My Twitter persona is much more dramatic about that than my real life persona. The Rangers are going to finish with a puncher's chance of getting the top overall pick. And then we'll see what happens with the lottery gods. But if you're asking me, there is no reason for JT Miller to be playing in these hockey games. None. There is no reason for Vincent Trocheck to be playing in these hockey games. None. And I get your point. You can't sit everyone forever. What's the problem with literally sitting Vincent Trocheck and just saying, go to your fucking group chat that Drury's in or whatever it is the general managers can, communicate in, and just being like, hey, we're trading Trocheck before the Olympics. Come to me with your best offers. You trade him in a week. He doesn't have to play.
I don't know that a self-imposed deadline is the best way to do business there, but hey,
we're trading Vincent Trocheck. Come to us with offers. Open it up.
I think they're saying that, Joe. Like, I think they're saying, come to us with offers for Vincent Trocheck. I don't think that it is practical to sit all of those guys indefinitely. Now, look, the advantage that you've got here is we are about to enter a period of 3 weeks where there's going to be no NHL hockey. And then we are going to come back and very shortly thereafter are going to have the trade deadline. So you're kind of getting
for the Olympics.
I don't know for certain, but I feel like there probably is. You do that. You're kind of going to get what you want, right? These guys, other than the ones who are going to play in the Olympics, are not going to play at all. Artemi Panarin is not going to play. Braden Schneider is not going to play. Alexis Lafrenière is not going to play. And I can't let this go by.
There is a roster freeze, by the way.
There we go.
Yep.
I can't let this go by. You said Alexis Lafrenière is not going to be a 70-point player next year. This is a guy whose career high in points was 57 in a year that the line with Trocheck and Panarin was clicking like mad. I don't know that Alexis Lafrenière will ever be a 70-point player next year, or if he could play hockey suspended in animation and not aging for the rest of his life, maybe he would once record 70 points. If he played with Nathan McKinnon, if he becomes sleeve McDyke,
Nathan McKinnon would not handle his bullshit. Let's be honest.
Right,
Nathan
I
McKinnon
agree
would be
with that.
Beside himself.
I kind of want to see him traded to the Colorado Avalanche just so that Nathan McKinnon can cram chickpea pasta down his throat and make him have to enjoy that. I kind of want that. I kind of want that to happen. But he's not going to be a 70-point player ever. I would love to be wrong about that. I just don't think I'm ever going to.
I think the point, fair. The point was more like you can't really. There's no reason to expect that Alexis Lafrenière is going to be anything more than he is right now. And if I'm proven wrong, fantastic. I've already abandoned my son. It is what it is. It was very painful.
I've abandoned my boy.
I would like you to.
I've abandoned my boy.
I'd like you to appreciate my privacy in this time. Okay, that's what I'm saying to you.
Do you?
What? I've abandoned my boy.
I've abandoned my child.
I have no. What?
There will be blood. I have a question for you. You're a big Bill Simmons guy, right?
I don't know if I'd say I'm a big Bill Simmons guy, but I listen to Bill Simmons when I'm driving sometimes. Sure.
Okay. I was thinking about this today because
Can I just add one other thing about that that's really weird?
Sure.
I'm not a basketball guy at all.
This is kind of what I'm getting to.
I love his basketball commentary, though.
So this is on my mind because I have been listening to the Rewatchables. And
I don't listen to any other Bill Simmons content.
Part of my problem with the Rewatchables is, while, again, it is content that is straight up my alley, is they make all of these references and analogies to the NBA, and I have no fucking clue what they're talking about. Having this actor in this role is like, giving a $55 million contract to this guy to be like your fourth. I have no fucking clue what any of that means. So Bill Simmons to me is two things. He is a big NBA guy, and he is a big movie culture guy. Mm-hmm. And you're not either of those things. What is the appeal to you?
I enjoy the way he talks about sports.
Even though it's a sport you don't follow.
Correct.
Or care about?
I have no love for Boston either. I hate every team that he loves.
This is the other reason that I'd always been resistant to Bill Simmons stuff is I used to read Grantland at ESPN all the time, and I'm aware of him, and I've always been aware of him. I can't take the Boston shit because I just fucking hate Boston sports teams.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's not a huge hockey guy, so there's no mention of the Bruins very often. It's really just the Celtics and this other stuff and, the Patriots, and it's fine. I also think Bill Simmons it's incredible that at any point in time, Bill Simmons will just be like, oh, he's got to be a top 17 player in the NBA, right? And it's how did you get to that unit of measurement? What's the deal?
Also, a hammock of Cheez-Its.
And this is another weird thing here. I love Ryan Russillo. I love Russillo. Like the way he podcasts is incredible. I just find him intelligent and like really a joy to listen to. I don't listen to Ryan Russillo's podcast. I only listen to him on the Bill Simmons podcast. I have no rhyme or reason for this. Also, for those of you who like either are new to the show or whatever it may be, I have like an hour and 40-minute commute every single day into and out of the city. So I'm just looking for things to have on in the background when I'm not calling Eric to chastise him about the way that he's running the company or like whatever it may be. And that's just like, it's really good background podcasting, I guess is what. And by the way, I don't mean that insultingly. I genuinely think Bill Simmons is like should be studied by science just for the way that he's been able to monetize himself and, go through this process. It's just it's weird. I can't describe it. And like I have no love for the NBA, but I love the drama of the NBA. And like all the things that he I don't know, it intrigues me. Honestly, I do think part of it is that I have no allegiance to it. You know what I mean? Like I'm consuming media that I actually don't care about the product, so I can just accept it for what it is.
Well, I can understand one point in there, which is I agree that Simmons is a master of the craft. And as somebody, you and I at least once a week talk into a microphone and listening to somebody who is a master of the craft at doing that, I understand it from that perspective. But it's just the two things that I primarily associate with Bill Simmons with are two things that mean nothing to you. And it just, even the idea of what you said of like background podcasting, like I'm trying to tune in and actually listen to the content of programs. And I subscribe to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a whole bunch of podcasts. If I'm looking for just background in that sense, like while I'm driving, I have music on. Like that's what I'm listening to music while I'm driving, not people talking about things, even if they are masters at talking about things that I just don't care about at all. I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, there's so much ADD rattling around in my brain that like I just, I can miss 20 minutes of the episode because I'm zoning out thinking about something, and it doesn't matter because I actually don't care what we're talking about. And honestly, I'm not an NBA guy. NBA trades fascinate me. Just what is given up, the aprons. I don't even understand it all, but I don't know. It intrigues me. So I don't even know how we got on this topic. No clue.
I don't know how we got onto that, but again, it occurred to me as I was listening to the Rewatchables episode about JFK just before we started doing this podcast that like you've mentioned Simmons a number of times, and I just don't understand what the appeal is to you, given that you have a disinterest in the things that I primarily associate with him.
That's what it is.
Whatever.
Also, my internet's a little spotty, so I'm closing things down as we go. You're going to have to do the questions today.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to get to questions?
Let's grab some questions. So blueshirtbanter.com, if you are either tier, either membership with the banter, you can ask questions in the question thread that we put up. Usually I read them, but Eric is going to read them today because it's about time he does something. So,
Nicole Vitale getting in just under the wire here for us to include at least one of her 3 questions that she has posted here.
God, Nicole is a machine, and I mean that as a compliment. Just churning out solid questions for the group. Chip, you could learn a thing or two from Nicole. You should think about this. First of all, she could probably teach you how to count so you could figure out what the number 61 is and who may or may not have worn it. And then you can learn.
Yeah, I think he was aware of the existence of the number 61, just not who wore it for the Rangers. But again, I don't want to assume facts not necessarily evidence. I could have blown his mind just like, by saying the number 61 to him. And he had just no idea how to handle it.
Yeah, there's zero clue in his mind of like what that number even exists. I think
like I had just said to him, a round square, and he looked at it the way that my dog would look at it when I tried to feed him a grape. Just pure blinking incomprehension.
He like looks at the number and shakes his head back and forth like this because he doesn't really know what to do with it.
From Nicole, What is your stance on the decision to trade Lafrenière? The way I see it, clearly skill is not his issue. It appears to be more drive and overall compete level.
Which is
So if
worse.
that isn't going to change here or likely anywhere, and his ceiling is barely 60 points, as I just mentioned, why not just set your expectations that the return will be underwhelming and less skilled? But if the mentality is there and they are fast and compete hard and go for it, the other side of this is the expectation that with Panarin out of the equation, he will finally have his chance to maybe even move back to his natural left wing side and be a permanent on power play one. But if the ceiling with Panarin having a 120-point season and more power play one time is still what we have seen with him at his absolute best, I'm not sure that it is worth it. So takes on trading Lafrenière, I can refer back to also Chris did. It's been the most popular piece on the site for the last 30 days. Over the last 30 days. It isn't even 30 days old.
See, Chip, that's
Chris's
value.
piece. Yeah, there you go. Is Chris's piece on trade options for Alexis Lafrenière. I agree in one sense that it is going to be, I think the return, no matter what it's going to be, is simultaneously going to be, it's Schrodinger's trade return. It's going to be overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time.
Yeah.
It's going to be overwhelming in the sense of, I think, I particularly, and I'm dragging you down to hell along with me, I am so out on Alexis Lafrenière that, frankly, getting like a conditional second for him, I would in some ways be impressed by.
See, I get off the bus there for sure.
But I'm also going to look at it from the perspective of, this is a guy with pedigree. He's a former first overall draft pick. I do think there are a lot of GMs out there who look at it from the perspective of, the meme of doesn't work but could be fun to fix. I do think, as I have said a couple times now, he is a guy who needs somebody else to raise his level. He needs a rising tide to lift his boat. So if you were the Colorado Avalanche and you acquired him and you put him on a line with Nathan MacKinnon, if you were, I don't know why the Pittsburgh Penguins would necessarily want to acquire him, but if you put him on a line with Sidney Crosby and Sleeve McDykel, he's probably scoring 80 points. So I think there's almost no trade return for Alexis Lafrenière that I think would truly shock me. I think there's some that may surprise me, but I don't think there's any that would shock me.
I guess my take on this is, and we talked about this a little bit last week. You were mean about it unexpectedly.
I was correct about it.
I should say expectedly.
That's the word you were looking for. Was correct about it.
So if I'm Chris Drury and the only options on the table are like a second round pick, right? I'm thinking to myself, I need to do everything in my power to get as much value as I can out of him. And the only way that I can do that is to fix him, right? It's more valuable to fix him. We know that his trade protection doesn't kick in until the end of the beginning of not this coming year, but the year after. So there is a little bit of an opportunity here for the Rangers to have a little bit of leeway, right? A little bit of runway to try to figure this out. And if it doesn't work, then you can trade him for that, 10 cents on the dollar trade. Who cares? The piece of this that, your point is a valid one. Like, I think it's safe to say at this point, Lafrenière is never going to be a guy who you can rely on to put up more than 60 points, right? Ever, in any circumstance, until he proves us otherwise. But if you can figure that part out, him being locked down for $7.4 million would be a really valuable contract. The problem is, are you holding the bag? Is this like some guy that bought into cryptocurrency? And like, there was a Reddit story once of the guy who, what'd you say?
HODL, right? Like HODL or HDO or whatever the hell that was.
No, he took a second mortgage out on his house, bought into Bitcoin. Bitcoin tanked, sold everything. Then Bitcoin went back up again. It's like you're playing these insane games. As far as I am concerned, I think Lafreniere's name should be out there. I don't necessarily think he needs to be here next year. It is very clear that it's not working in New York. If the goal is to force Lafrenière to give a shit about hockey, you could it's easier, quote unquote, to fix than skill, but it's really not, because that's a mental piece and like what I just don't understand. Mm-hmm. And the lack of tolerance that I had. Like, I gave Lafrenière a huge pass last year that he was just this piece of tofu that was absorbing the, the flavor of the bullshit that the Rangers did last year. That's not the case this year. Like, this is not okay. And that in and of itself is something that I think the Rangers maybe want to get out of. I would not be opposed to them getting out of the Alexis Lafrenière business. It's just that semi needs to be a trade that just kind of makes sense as far as I'm concerned. And if that trade isn't out there and it doesn't make a ton of sense, you may as well keep him and see if you can't fix him. And if you can't, then you're getting just as shitty of a trade return to like a year from now that you're going to get today. And it just kind of is what it is.
Like a dog returning to its vomit, I am going to return to a line of criticism that I have been lodging for a couple episodes now.
Vomit.
It's from the Bible, Joe. Come on, man. Come on.
I've never seen the movie The Bible. I don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe if Bill Simmons does a podcast about it, you'll be aware.
Yeah, I'll listen to it and then know.
Yeah. You'll zoom out during like Deuteronomy or something. So what you were just saying about sending him to Colorado and having Nathan McKinnon, drag him into giving a shit about hockey. What does it say again about JT Miller? JT Miller is also incapable of getting Alexis Lafrenière apparently to give enough of a shit that he engages himself in that kind of way. I understand that you have bigger gripes against other players.
Though.
I know, as I have dragged you down into hell with me about your son, Alexis Lafrenière, I am also trying to drag JT Miller up the list of people that you have gripes with.
He's up the list. I'm telling you, he's going to play brilliantly in the Olympics, and it is going to fucking piss me off. Again, but
this is the performance point, right? This is a leadership point. This is like
fair. I also don't want to let
get this guy to fucking engage.
I don't want to let Lafrenière off the hook.
No, I don't want to let Lafrenière off the hook.
Look at that.
Either.
That's the real flip out right here is me telling you I actually don't want to blame JT Miller for Alexis Lafrenière being a piece of crap because I don't want to blame I'm not letting Lafrenière. If this was a skill issue, that's one thing. This is not a skill issue. This is Alexis Lafrenière does not hate to lose, and that's
it's a give
not
a shit
okay.
issue. Yeah.
Yes, that is worse in my opinion because I said it all last year. You can control effort. You cannot control anything else, but you can control effort. And that, Eric, is also from the Bible. John,
you'll have to give me the chapter and verse.
John
on that
3:17. Tebow had it all over his thing.
Just John 3:17, the famous Bible verse that everybody
famous Bible
references.
verse, John 3:17. I know you know about John 3:16. John 3:17. It's a little less known, but that's exactly what it is. So,
what does this is from Top Shelf. What does the starting lineup look like post-trade deadline? And will they integrate any youth into power play 1, penalty kill, and end of game situations for experience, or rely on whatever vets are left to try and win games? Really, there's going to be a point where there's just not going to be enough veterans left.
It's got to be first line Gabe Perreault.
I mean, you're already getting first line Gabe Perreault. And
sort of.
You got to say like that. The pass to JT Miller for that goal in the Boston game is
so
like that. That was beautiful, and just more of that, Gabe. Just more of that. I got to think that there are going to be so few players left from the veteran leadership core that you're going to have to start getting some younger guys involved in those roles.
They should be doing it now. There's no reason not to do it now. To your
point, this comes
point,
back to the point of coaches coach every single game to win it, and there's an inherent bias even in the coaches who do the best job of developing young players towards playing guys who have more experience, who are veterans in those situations. It's going to rub up against that. It always is.
But Mike Sullivan is not a coach who is here on the back end of a 5-year contract, who has no idea whether or not he's going to survive the summer. He's in year 1 of a 7-year deal. He is admittedly one of the best coaches in the NHL. He is widely respected. He is the coach of the United States men's national team in the Olympics. If I'm Mike Sullivan, I am so much more concerned about years 3 and 4 than I am about this year.
I don't think any coach has coached that way.
I'm agreeing with you that it appears that that's the case. But I would be so much more concerned with, like, yeah, let's start developing some of these kids and figure this shit out. Like, why wouldn't you do that? The games don't matter. The big fault we have with what happened last year was the games didn't matter, and Peter Laviolette was like, fuck this. I'm not even going to talk to, like, the locker room. I'm not playing the kids. That's insanity. True insanity.
Look, those are two different things to me, because one of them is post-game, how you are handling macro situations, and the other is the micro in-game stuff. I just do not know the NHL head coach who is going to coach any given game thinking about what year 2 or 3 for this franchise is going to look like.
But he's going through a rebuild. You have to come to reality at some point.
Joe, I get it. I'm not disagreeing with you on that point. I'm just saying that person does not exist. I really don't think that person exists. Every coach is going to coach every given game as if they are trying to win it. Like, we've had this discussion about being fans before, right? Like, I accept watching every game between now and the end of the season. It is better for the Rangers if they lose. I can't root for them to do that. I can't cheer for them to lose. I'm not capable of doing that. In the same way that I just don't think it is possible for any coach to coach a game without the agenda being win the game that is in front of you. That's not how they're programmed. That's not how they act. They get to the position that they are in because they don't do those things. Because they coach to win the game that is in front of them. Now, we can have deployment disagreements and think that it would be better for them in terms of trying to win the game in front of them, to play some of those younger players, to put them into better situations to prove themselves. I think that there's an argument to be made within those confines, but they are just not going to be like, it is a one goal. We're down a goal with 2 minutes to go. I am going to throw Brett Berard out there because he's young and I want to give him a chance to prove himself. I just don't think any coach is ever going to do that.
The season's over. So, like, what are you doing?
Again, I return to the point that there is no coach who is going to coach game 82 of a season where they're going to finish last in the league who isn't trying to win that game. They're always trying to win that game.
Stupid.
Is it, though?
Yes.
Is it, though? Like,
yes.
You want a coach who is coaching to lose games?
No, not saying that. I'm saying I want a coach that prioritizes, in an instance like this where the season is over,
who doesn't prioritize the outcome of the game they're coaching?
That prioritizes making sure that the team is in the best position it could possibly be next year and figuring out what you have in the players that are on the roster that you need to make decisions about.
I don't know how you get to that position as a head coach without having gotten there by caring about winning every single game that is in front of you, because otherwise you're just going to lose a whole lot of games. Like, I think the consequence of that attitude is going to be you're going to lose games that you might otherwise win. I just do not think that is the programming. And again, a lot of these guys, like Mike Sullivan, were players, right? They play every game trying to win. Well, maybe not JT Miller, but they play every game trying to win it.
Charlie's got a wealth of quotes here that he can misinterpret the whole time.
Yeah, he can attribute all my JT Miller slander to you. Yeah, no, it'll be delightful. I think you're asking for something that I can't even rule on the wisdom of because it just doesn't exist.
I'm not suggesting coach to lose. I am just saying
a difference about the outcome of the individual game. Is that fair?
So fine, but like, let's go back to last year. the Rangers did exactly what you're saying, lost anyway, and then got to this season. We're like, well, we don't know what the fuck is going on with some of these guys. And then Drury signed 2 of them to 2-year extensions. So, like, I just don't understand why you wouldn't say, you know what? Gabe Perreault, top line, top power play unit. Scott why is Vladislav Gavrikov quarterbacking the power play?
Because he's a veteran with more experience.
Cool. Is it helping them win games? They suck. You may as well put Morrow out there and get what you can out of him. Because to me, if the real goal is to be competitive sooner rather than later, and I'm putting quotations around that for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you see my beautiful face and fingers doing that. Getting the experience for some of these kids is actually more important to that role. So sure, you could prioritize winning hockey games right now with veterans that you're going to lose anyway because the team fucking sucks and Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin aren't playing and JT Miller is a husk of himself. Or you can give the kids some runway and let them figure their shit out and actually develop. And by the way, I do think Mike Sullivan is trying to keep the kids away from how shitty things are. I honestly think some of the decisions he's making, I don't understand the Morrow power play thing. I do think he's doing a really good job with Gabe Perreault. I really do. So this is not a criticism of him. It's just as the season wears on, I would like to see Mike Sullivan start to forego some of these veteran-laden decisions, and he soon may not have the ability not to.
Well, that's where we started the answer to this question. I think I want to be clear about something. I agree with you that I actually think that Sullivan is doing a pretty decent job at some of this. And I think once a lot of the roster is cleared out of players who are departing between now and the trade deadline, they are going to have no choice but to play a lot more kids and or a lot of the players that are coming back in some of those trades. I think I agree with you more about the criticism of I would like to see Morrow on the power play rather than Vladislav Gavrikov. I agree with that. I don't like that decision. But I think it's more of the end of the game. We're trying to protect a lead. We are trying to get the game tied. You're just going to continue to see coaches, including Mike Sullivan, especially maybe even Mike Sullivan, deploy guys who have been there dozens of times before in those moments. So I think you can split the baby here. I think you can do both of these things simultaneously. And you're right that Sullivan will kind of be forced in a position to do some of that by the lack of some of those veterans on the roster after the trade deadline. But I think the bigger point is this is a challenge. And we've talked about this before because the general manager, the team president is thinking larger arc with the exception of, some guys like Bill Zito in Florida who now they've already won 2 cups. But like I'm saving all these contract problems are going to be problems for future general manager and not for him. But there are guys whose primary job is to manage the bigger time arc. And there are guys whose job is to manage the shorter time arc. And Mike Sullivan is the coach. And the time arc that he primarily manages is 60 minutes. And he is always going to try to manage those games in a way, we could disagree about this and whether he's doing it effectively. He's always going to try to manage that time arc in a way that gets them to win that individual game. It's just always going to be like that.
No, it's fine.
Mark Gessner. I was out west for work. Super Bowl commercials won't film themselves, boys. And I went to the Anaheim and LA games. Holy hell, we need to get faster. I know that isn't exactly breaking news, but we routinely get absolutely torched in those games. My question, do you guys trust Drury to rebuild this roster with speed as a priority? I know he loves the hard to play against vibes, but watching this team, I can't help but notice roughly 1,000 times per game that the New York Rangers have trouble playing against teams that they can't fucking catch. Might be nice to be the team that other teams can't catch for a change. Doesn't mean we can't have dickheads on our team, but can they be fast dickheads maybe just as a treat?
I mean, Drury specifically mentioned speed as one of like the 4 things he was after.
It was in the letter. Yeah.
And while I think much of the letter was lip service, I do think that speed has been an issue for the Rangers for 3 years, 4 years.
I think they recognize it too.
They have to. Because one of the major complaints about the Rangers going up against Florida was the team speed. You just got to be fast. Yeah, you have to be fast, especially in a system like Mike Sullivan's, where he's expecting two forwards to forecheck like rabid dogs. If you don't get the puck, you better bust your ass back to play defense. And there's neutral zone set plays where the Rangers, if you all remember, Kreider used to run down the wing and the Rangers just throw the puck to him. Like, you just got to have speed.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rangers have none of it. They are slow. They are plodding. They are a disgrace to their ancestors and yours and mine and Eric's.
I agree. It has to be a priority. I think it will be a priority. We will see when we get some of these returns. Probably should have gone to this after the last conversation from Nicole. Obviously, Sullivan is a great coach, and none of this is his fault, but can't help but wonder if the way this season turned out and the direction they are trying to go, younger, newer, fresher talent, would Dan Muse be better for the young development of this team? Sullivan wasn't really brought in with the idea of taking over a rebuilding team, and yet Dan Muse was in Pittsburgh. I did see something from a Pittsburgh fan who kind of chuckled at Mike Sullivan didn't want to be a part of a rebuilding Pittsburgh, but is now going to be part of a rebuilding New York Rangers. There were different things. There were more things going on than that in Pittsburgh. Look, returns on Dan Muse so far in Pittsburgh look pretty good. We'll see how that plays out over time. I think it's a little early to give returns about Dan Muse as a head coach when he has a little over half a season under his belt. I think you know what you've got in Mike Sullivan. And even going back to the previous conversation we were having, in long arc terms, I don't know how many other coaches I would rather have, even given the position that they are in.
None.
So I don't know about none.
Maybe two.
Yeah, I could think of
John Cooper.
John Cooper, and it's kind of fascinating to me how trendy Rod Brind'Amour was as an answer for this for a while. And man, I find it interesting that in the Panarin conversation, which we haven't even really talked about Panarin all that much, and we are an hour and 17 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think
into
we
this
need to talk about
conversation.
Panarin at this point.
All I'm going to say about this is I find it interesting that a lot of very high talent players, like you saw this with Mikko Rantanen last year, are just like, the fuck I'm going to play for Carolina. I find that whole thing kind of fascinating. I think it is Rod Brind'Amour is modern Herb Brooks in the 1980 Olympic team. Like, going back to the whole mythology, I can't even say the word, the mythology of the 1980 Olympic team, where it's, I'm not looking for the best players, I'm looking for the right ones. I think that actually kind of is the case, other than players that they have drafted, that they can't bring the best players in the league in to Carolina. They, even by trade, Mikko Rantanen didn't want to sign there after he was traded there. So they got to kind of do what they can with the right quote unquote players. And the right quote unquote players still aren't getting them pretty much beyond the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, the Brind'Amour talk was like, he doesn't win. So at some point that has to mean something. The reality of the situation with Mike Sullivan, I just want to talk about this because this has come up too. A lot of Penguin fans are dunking on exactly what you just said. Like, oh, he didn't want to rebuild here, so now he gets to rebuild in New York. Blah, 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 blah. Mike Sullivan reset his own timeline. Like, you could hang out in Pittsburgh for another year or two, get fired, and then start from scratch, or you can go to the Rangers. And, of course, you'd rather be on the Rangers than the Penguins. So, New York, Pittsburgh. Stanley Cups. No Stanley Cups, but still.
Quite.
Madison Square Garden, the Pittsburgh Paint Arena, or whatever the fuck it is now, with the goddamn horn. Blue, red, white, colors of America. Yellow, black, colors of evil. Like, what do you want me to do?
I don't know, Joe. I don't know how you can give up on the opportunity to coach Sleeve McDykel.
Sleeve McDykel.
What else we got here? Ye old scribe. Besides heavy drinking, what's a Ranger fan to do over the next 4 months in this frigid weather? Heavy drinking?
Yeah, you're drinking Blanton's. You may as well do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have anything else for you other than drink heavily. That's my recommendation to you.
It's the answer.
Tsar Igor, 23. Is Mike Sullivan good at developing young players, or is he past his prime? I think we've already talked about this. Or will he actually play the young Rangers? Yes, we have talked about this. I just want to get Tsar Igor's question on the record there. Kyle Schnitzer, are there any plans for a Blueshirt banter app?
I mean, the person to talk to about this would be Eric. Eric has informed me that it is not possible. Eric spends the
It's not
company's
possible. I just don't think that it's advisable.
Eric. So things that Eric do find advisable end up costing me money. So if he's telling me this is not advisable, that's just going to cost me more money and be an even worse idea. So the answer is no. Eric Kohn, the worst CFO in this company's history. Also the second CEO in this company's history. CFO, sorry.
You still are in charge of it, unless you're ceding that job to me too.
Potentially. We'll see how things go.
We'll see, yeah. Also, Kyle Schnitzer, what are the chances Othman becomes a decent third liner?
So, interestingly enough, I do look on some level, and it's rich coming from me. You have to blame the player, right? Othman did not handle a bunch of the circumstances over the past few years well. It's also very fair to say he's been ridiculously unlucky. There is a real chance that Brennan Othman is playing top line minutes for the New York Rangers this year. Just by nature of no one's going to really trade for him. His value sucks. And what else? Much like my argument about Lafrenière, but with lower, risk. Try to fix him. See what you can figure out. So, yeah, you're going to get a look at him, maybe with some real line mates. Well, real actually is a relative term, but that's another one where, like, why is he playing 9 minutes a night? I don't need to see Vincent Trocheck and Artemi Panarin getting like 24 minutes a night. I just don't need to see it. I don't need JT Miller getting 20 minutes a night. I just don't need to see it.
I need JT Miller getting 0 minutes a night right now.
Miller, you'll back off and be like, oh, we should teach him for the kid. But
he's hurt. The other players, it's not the same thing.
See, my hatred of Trocheck and your hatred of Miller is just like, both of us are right, but we're just so blinded by our hate that it just...
All we're arguing over, and I find this hilarious, is like, we both hate each player, but like you don't hate him as much as I do, and you should hate him as much as I do.
No, you should hate Trocheck as much as I do, is I think what it is.
You should hate Miller as much as I do.
I don't even necessarily hate Trocheck. It's just like I don't feel confident in him at all in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the last thing I will say on this is it's not necessarily that I disagree about that assessment. It is that I feel fairly confident that Vincent Trocheck is gone. And
yeah, he's got to be.
I'm going to be saddled with JT Miller for the next, I don't know how many fucking years. And I'm already worried about it. That's my point. Barring this is from Rangers fan born after 1994. Barring a top 3 pick, praying for it, who would you prefer we pick? We should probably, and I don't know who this is, we can talk about it off air. We should get somebody. Yeah, we should get somebody who knows prospects, because I don't know necessarily how to answer that question. I will tell you what I did. I simmed a mock draft on Tankathon. In said mock draft, the Calgary Flames moved up 3 spots, and they selected Gavin McKenna. The Vancouver Canucks dropped a spot and selected Ivar Stenberg. The Toronto Maple Leafs moved up 10 spots and drafted right defenseman Keaton Verhoff. And the Rangers come in, they dropped a spot to number 6 and selected Caleb Malhotra.
Would love getting Malhotra, by the way.
Tynan Lawrence is probably the other. Like, they need...
Those are the 2 BC boys.
Centers. Yeah.
Those are the BC boys. I would expect the Rangers to be drafting one of them, unless they pick in the top 3.
Gavin McKenna, I think even as he has been a little disappointing, he still has 29 points in 22 games for Penn State, but he has had a little bit of a disappointing season for Penn State. Still almost certainly your first.
I said BC. I meant BU,
pick.
by the way, so that I don't get Charlied.
He's a left wing. Stenberg is a winger. Verhoff is a defenseman. I don't know. They really need, like, they could draft a defenseman. It would be defensible.
Well, I just in the lottery and the Rangers picked first overall. There you go.
There you go. Can we talk for 1 second about the potential absolutely chaotic outcome that the Ottawa Senators could get the first overall pick, and it's forfeited.
And not be able to draft. Whew. God, it would be the best.
At
that point, you just need
to,
especially considering Gavin McKenna, and I know people have cooled on him a little bit, is supposed to be a generational talent.
We've heard that before.
Well, we didn't hear that about Lafrenière. Lafrenière, nobody used that terminology with Lafrenière.
Nobody is a strong statement. We will.
Nobody who matters.
Now we have to adjudicate mattering. Charlie,
correct.
I'm laying that one at your feet, buddy.
Don't fuck this up, Charlie. You're on thin ice as it is. So just think about that.
But yeah, I think either of the centers, Tynan Lawrence or Caleb Malhotra, I think would be great picks. Again, to the extent that I know we should get somebody on who can talk to us about prospects.
I'll figure that out, like I do everything for this thing.
Mm-hmm. Last question. Careful with that axe, Jim. Who designed Joe's YouTube studio?
Is this about my background? Is that what this is about?
Yes, Joseph.
My children. That's who did it.
You need something like the kids stuff over your right shoulder is.
Do you see? I don't even
cute.
see it on my. I don't even see it on my like video.
I'm talking
feed.
about the stuff on the bulletin board to your right.
I can see
that. I see that. I don't know if we see that on the what'll be finally produced as the video. I see that.
I see to where my hand is right now.
It depends on your view. I have a view that gives me a wider shot right now, so I see that, and I see the playhouse to the left of you. I think that is your right, sir. I think what they're talking about is when you slim in, right, on the view from your camera, you get a door and a blank wall.
That's what you got,
which
baby.
I will note, I told you to fucking hang something on the wall.
Eric already made me do this. So
yes.
And how much better would this be? It's like I'm in witness protection. Like, the Rangers have been hurting me for years. I don't know what to do about it.
I mean, for people that we have now on YouTube subjecting to having to look at your face, it probably would be better. But
look at how hot I look, bitch. I look really good. Look at you with your homelessness. But snowed for like 4 days. I couldn't do anything. That's what you sound like.
Yeah, but like, see, I have nicely decked out the background behind me. I have the poster from the Oasis concert that I saw last summer.
You have time to.
I got
canceling events.
Rangers. I got Mad Men. I've got what over my shoulder here? Radiohead's Kid A, Interstellar. My son's drawing of the Rangers logo. We got Yankee Stadium with the kids. I got the foam finger up here that my son got at a Rangers game. And finally, the over in the corner there is my friend Scott Stantis, who's a cartoonist at the Chicago Tribune. That is his drawing from the Chicago Cubs 2016, now 10 years ago, Joe, 2016 World Series championship, which, because when he was autographing it to me, he asked, who should I make it out to? And I said, Jorge. So it is literally, the inscription on it is to Jorge. And I love that because it now turns into a conversation piece. People ask, who's Jorge? I'm like, I can't talk about that.
Well, legally, I'm not permitted to talk about it.
Legally, I'm not permitted to talk about that. A guy with poor lighting in his basement on a podcast who is in witness protection tells me that I cannot speak about this.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. BlueshirtBanter.com, all your ad-free New York Rangers access for $85 a year or $40 a year. It doesn't get you all the stories, but it does get you the community tier. You get access to the Discord, which we're trying to be more active in. Gets you access to the commenting threads so you can hear Eric or I read your questions on this very show. Please subscribe to us. Follow us on iTunes, on Spotify. YouTube.com/BlueShirtBanter. Subscribe to us there. Facebook.com/BlueShirtBanter. Like us there. Join us. Follow us, however that works. Stay warm. Stay healthy. I don't know. Anything else, Eric?
I think that's it for me.
All right. Bye for now. See you next week.